Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Madeline. I'm here representing Malaprop. Thanks for being here. Today to celebrate Amy Ratcliffe's launch of her new book, Thrill Ride, along with Beth Revis in conversation. Very excited. I know several of you have already purchased a book, but if not, they are for sale straight back behind you at the counter. Early purchase available tonight only for the launch date. We got special permission for that. So yeah, we will have those for sale after the event. Our shop actually closes at 7 o'clock. So whenever this conversation is over and the Q&A is over at 7, if you guys wouldn't mind heading back to the counter to purchase your book before getting it signed and being in conversation, we would appreciate it. If you all would also double check that your phones and watches and things are on silent, much appreciate that. We have bathrooms down the hallway. There is a code to get into them. If you need the code, it is at the counter as well, or it'll be printed at the bottom of your receipt. And if you haven't bought a book, they can also just print out the code for you as well. That's all my kind of in-person housekeeping. For folks that are tuning in online, I'll send in some instructions for sending in your questions for the Q&A. For folks here, you can just raise your hand. Beth will answer your question, repeat it, and yeah, be part of the conversation. Well, I am excited to introduce Amy Ratcliffe. She is a prolific geek space journalist and author of several books on Star Wars and the Marvel Universe. Through nearly a decade of covering the theme park industry as a reporter, she has an informed perspective on rides, lands, and what it takes to create immersion. The former editor-in-chief of Nerdist, one of the biggest geek culture sites on the internet, Amy has written for IGN, Collider, StarWars.com, Star Wars Insider Magazine, the official DC Comics blog, and IndieWire. Additionally, she has taken her passion for fandom to the stage as a panel host for conventions such as Star Wars Celebration, Emerald City Comic-Con, and New York Comic-Con. Amy was born and raised in a small town in Ohio, but now lives in Asheville with her cats and the many birds that visit her their backyard. Beth Revis is an internationally acclaimed best-selling author with books available in more than 20 languages. 5 of her novels have listed in the New York Times. Beth primarily writes science fiction and fantasy for both adults and young adults. She's written 3 books for Star Wars, including The Princess and the Scoundrel. Her most recent books include the historical romantasy duology, starting with Night of the Witch, co-written with Sara Raasch, and a snarky sci-fi novella series called Chaotic Orbits. Beth's other novels include the best-selling science fiction trilogy Across the Universe, the dark fantasy Give the Dark My Love, the twisty contemporary A World Without You, and many more. Beth is the co-owner of Wordsmith Workshops and the author of the Paper Heart series, both of which aid aspiring authors. A native of North Carolina, she lives in rural North Carolina with her son, husband, and dog. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Right. Well, let's get started. So first, can you tell me about Thrill Ride in your own words?
Yeah, I should have prepared for that because elevator pitches are never my. People are like, "What's your book about?" I'm like, "Well, stuff happens." And there's a roller coaster. There is a roller coaster. I do not like them, but Charlotte does. I don't have stomach for roller coasters. So Thrill Ride is about Charlotte Gates, who is a theme park designer. She's basically a former Imagineer in my book called Dream Mechanic, because we don't like to mess with Disney and their copyright terms. And she gets laid off, but she has a place to go, which is her family's theme park where she grew up. It's called Lands of Legend. It's in a small town in Ohio, shocker, near where I grew up. It's a fictional town. I love an idealized small town. And there she is trying to help them open a new land with this exciting new roller coaster, but they don't have the funds. So they bring in an investor who has never been on a roller coaster, doesn't know what a theme park is. And she has to teach Gregory a lot of things, including maybe he doesn't need to wear a tie in a theme park. And it's a very grumpy sunshine dynamic, and as happens, it's not a spoiler because it's a romance. They start to like each other, then they kiss, and then they fall in love.
So it's a kissing book.
It's a kissing book, my favorite kind.
Excellent. So I have many, many questions, and at the end of this, I will be turning to all of you, and it's going to be awkward if you don't have questions. So yeah, make sure you come up with them. But I want to start with, because this is also in the book, what is the difference between an amusement park and a theme park?
Yeah, I have a lot of feelings about
You
this.
do.
But I have feelings, right? And I didn't want to be too, I think it is still a little preachy, but that's okay. That's who I am. But to kind of back myself up, I had the very good fortune of working with an Imagineer when I worked at Disney briefly. And he's very kind about like wanting, like if I'm like, can we talk about this thing? Scott's always like, yes. So I got him on the phone, this very busy Imagineering executive, and I'm like, hey, pretend I've never been to a theme park. What would you say the difference is between a theme park and an amusement park? And it is in the name, kind of, it's theming. An amusement park will have rides, and it's like your carnival, maybe like when you go to a county fair, and it's fun, but there's not an overarching story that connects them. So when you go to a theme park, of course, Disney parks are my favorite. You go to themed lands where there is not only like, you know, Adventureland, it has Jungle Cruise, has the Indiana Jones ride. It has a whole lore though that connects those things. The environment connects those things, and it gets really detailed. One of my favorite Imagineers is Joe Roby, and he was key to the development of Animal Kingdom in Florida. And it's like he talks about like picking out the appropriate doorknobs to go with theming in an area, and everything serves what you want people to feel when you're here. And amusement parks are still fun. I don't think one or the other is better. They're just different.
Yeah, they very much different. So Charlotte's family's park, is that based on anything real? Because I think we all know like the difference between like Disney World and a small town kind of park. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I was thinking Maggie Valley the whole time. Like, it's definitely not Maggie Valley. But that's what I was thinking of. Did you have one in mind?
Yes. So during the pandemic, I was like, how did I come across this? I think I was just more online than usual, which is a lot online. And I came across this small town theme park in Portland, or near Portland, Oregon, called Enchanted Forest. And I still haven't been because
They didn't even comp you. So Enchanted Forest, if you're watching online.
Yes.
Scoundrel.
Just come out, I'll visit, we'll sign some books, but it is a homegrown theme park. It's pretty small, and it was started by this guy who was a draftsman, and it was just his dream to open a theme park. And one day when he was with his wife, he saw the perfect amount of like, he's like, this land is like, this is perfect. This is kind of exactly where I want to build. It's enough space, there's room to grow, and built it like by hand, this family. And it's very themed, like fairy tale themed. And they kind of have some, like I feel like their most like thrill ride is they have like a bobsled ride that's like not quite like the Matterhorn at Disney, but that style. And they have their version of a haunted mansion, which I have a friend who grew up near Portland, and she says as kids, like, they were terrified to go in it. And it was like this thing like where people would dare you. And she wrote it as an adult and not that long ago. And she sent me a video, and she's like, I don't know. Things are just, you have different perspectives when you were younger, because it looks like the goofiest. Like, I could write it and not be scared that I'm a baby. So that was kind of part of the inspiration. And then I also combined it with, I love Renaissance fairs, and I love the theming of Renaissance fairs. Where I grew up in Ohio, near the, like where this book is set. I started going to that Renaissance fair when I was 16 and went every year until I left Ohio when I was like 25. And it's like a sizable one. It's probably about the size of the one that's near Charlotte. And just, it's like magical, and you escape into it, and it's, you know, not like authentic, because if it was authentic to that era,
Yeah.
none of us would be having a good time, and we'd be in danger of plague, probably. I don't know.
There's more soap at the Renaissance Fair, which not much, to be clear. There's more.
It's true, yeah, and you have to grab wait in line for that soap because the bathrooms are always so busy. But that was kind of part of the inspiration too, and I wanted to combine that theming, but also like, you know, I got really in the weeds with like, okay, acreage wise, like how many acres is Dollywood? Because that's probably a little too big, but it's closer in size to what I wanted than Disneyland. So all those things kind of played into it, along with just wanting it to be kind of vague. So the theme park is called Lands of Legend, and it's based in like mythology. So there's a fairy tale land. There's nothing branded, and that's part of the story of the book, is that to make money, they want to add big bad intellectual property, which I don't actually think is a bad thing, but for this theme park, it would be. We don't want a random brand coming in, and anyway, so Greek mythology comes into it, like adventuring, and I just really wanted to make it a place where I would want to go.
I want to go there. I would ride the roller coasters though.
I would ride them once.
Okay, so I'm actually shocked that you don't like roller coasters, but what rides do you like at the theme parks?
The ones designed for baby children. I think I'm joking. My favorite ride at Disneyland is I like, Space Mountain is about like Big Thunder Mountain. Those are like Disney roller coasters, right?
Okay, yeah.
I can do those, but my favorite rides are like the boat rides, and not like
Those are the worst rides.
not like the ones where you get wet, like the Storybook Canal boats, where you're just like,
That's worse. I want a chance of either dying or getting wet. I think that's
how
simple.
dare you? How dare you?
So you just want to have like a luxurious cruise through the jungle.
Yes, where nothing bad happens, and with terrible jokes.
Okay,
They're
the
actually
jokes are
great.
good. Jokes are
Jokes are
good. Yeah, I'll give you that.
But what I won't ride, what kind of inspired this book, is I did a press event for when Universal Orlando, sorry if this is one of your questions and I'm just jumping
Go for
ahead.
it.
They opened a Jurassic Park themed roller coaster called Velocicoaster that is like intense, but I was covering it for work at the time for Nerdist, so I felt like for journalistic integrity that I should go one at one time.
That's
And
the last time.
And that was the only time. And I remember walking off that roller coaster, like kind of wobbly, and I had to go right to an interview with the art director. And I was like, "Hi, give me a second. Like I don't ride roller coasters." And he just got these big eyes. He's like, "Are you okay? Do you need to sit down?" And I mean, it was also Florida in June, so you're already predisposed to not feel great.
Yeah. It is pretty terrible that the best theme parks are in the worst place to go in the summertime.
It's just miserable to go in the summer.
It is. It's so crowded. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So that was the inspiration. Like later that day or that evening at like a dinner, I was talking with a couple other journalists, and it just hit me like, okay, I could write a book about somebody who does like roller
So what I'm
coasters.
hearing is that roller coasters were very inspirational. And that for your next big deal, you're gonna have to ride another roller coaster.
I mean, is that how it works?
Apparently.
I mean, in this book, like a lot of it is about building like a roller coaster for the theme park, right? It doesn't have like a huge thrill ride, and they're trying to attract a new audience. So I, had to pretend to be excited about it as a writer, but yeah.
The world of fiction.
The world of fiction. I think I saw you talk about once, like, where it's funny as a writer, you can write these things and like give people whatever kind of careers, but then you have to like know enough to like, I forget what specific one you were, but I was like, oh, why did you do it?
I don't know. I just made it up.
I know, right? So like, we're not gonna get too into the details of engineering here.
I mean, to be fair, I write science fiction and I do not know science at all. The amount of times I've had to go do basic like science classes, and I'll be like, okay, let me look up this. Okay, now let me look up the high school level. No, middle school level. We're in elementary school now. Let me figure out those facts. It's so bad.
just dial that
I'm not
back.
smart enough for my smart characters.
Well, you would never know.
I'm very good at faking. Okay, so which came first? Was it the amusement park? Was it Charlotte? Was it the storyline? Where did the idea sort of develop?
That's a great question. As you know, publishing takes conservatively 5,000 years at minimum.
Yeah.
So I started, well, it's publishing, right? And I write really slowly. So I had the idea. The Velocicoaster event was June 21. I came across Enchanted Forest sometime around then. So it really came from it being a theme park and wanting to like write a romance set in a theme park at after the Velocicoaster. So yeah, the roller coaster was an inspiration.
So you were traumatized and then turned it into a rom-com.
I'm sorry, they did a great job with that roller coaster. If you like roller coasters, you're gonna have a wonderful time.
To be honest, you're really selling me on it. And
You'll like it.
oh.
They have this wild part of it, and there's a specific, I got very into like roller coaster blogs because there's a lot of terminology. I don't know how much I ended up using, but in that ride, there's one point where they do an effect. You don't have an it's just a lap bar, which is also bananas. And I want to be like secured. I have like
all of your life.
It's but they make you feel like you are suspended off your seat for like longer than you should be. No, it's really uncomfortable. And there's a term for that. So yes, I was traumatized. And I'm like, what if we turn this into a happy story with someone who likes roller coasters? And with my love for theme parks and Disney and Imagineering, I knew she had to be a former dream mechanic. And then it was, kind of thinking about romance as my favorite genre to read. So it was thinking about my favorite tropes. And my favorite is enemies to lovers. But as it turns out, like, I didn't really want to make him that mean. I'm not good at writing jerks yet.
The roller coaster was the real enemy.
The roller coaster was. So it became more of a grumpy sunshine, but Charlotte took shape very quickly once I kind of had that past. And I feel like any Imagineer I've met, they're very creative, obviously, but also very driven and very committed to making an experience for the guests that come to the park. So I approached it from like, she's like so enthusiastic about her work and has definite issues tying up what she does with her identity, which I couldn't tell you anything about, that I definitely have never had that problem. But it comes from a place of wanting to make magic for the guests that are coming to the parks.
Oh, that's really
Yeah, that's how I kind of justify it. I'm like, you're a lot, but you're coming from a good place.
right. So you've already talked about it a little bit. So aside from roller coasters, what are some fun research things that you did for this? Because even in like a light rom-com, there's always research that you never expect to do.
Yeah, I mean, I have happily years of research in going to theme parks and going on rides that aren't roller coasters and eating lots of food and talking to Imagineers from my job and interviewing them. But what I like to do is I'm like, I don't know how to design a theme park, not really. And like, thank goodness I didn't have to follow any kind of real budget. Because I'm like, we can put whatever in here and just figure out how this small town family would have, it's fine. Suspension of disbelief. But Imagineering has this cool free program. It's called Imagineering in a Box. It's a series of short videos, and Disney designed it for kids. It might have started out as a school program, but it's still free and online, and it really walks you through with, if you're into that thing, like rock star Imagineers going through in kid language, going to like dial it back of what theming is, what you should consider, like if you're building your park, like think of different lands, think of the story, think about what you want people to feel and how they did it. And then there were more practical examples of like every module had like a homework assignment. Some of them were written and some of them were like craft-based. I didn't do those because at some point, which I'm sure you can relate to, you have to start writing the book.
I'd rather make a roller coaster out of paper straws.
I would rather do that. I would rather, I built out, I mean, look, I feel like the theme park that I showed of lands is very detailed and immersive, but I built out way more of that than showed up in the book. Because it was fun and it was not writing. It was
Did you make a map?
I did. I should. So I was going to get a professional one made. It didn't quite work out, but very early on when I was pitching this idea to my agent, Eric Smith, who God bless him, signed me as a nonfiction writer. And I was like, hey, Eric, what if
You're the wrong guy. I'm not a roller coaster, see?
And he was very supportive, but I drew this, I'm not an artist, on my iPad, this very basic just so I would know where things are, because part of like early part of the book, Charlotte's showing Gregory around the park. So I wanted to know, okay, this connects to this, and also procrastination and not writing. So getting into that like design element and pretending like, I'm like, oh, I think it would be so fun to be an Imagineer, but I don't have that background. Also, I don't want to particularly live in Orlando or LA right now. If they would even, I mean, as if that's the only reason. I just haven't been like, we're hiring you immediately. But that was like a fun bit of research. Just like, it wasn't learning biology or learning science,
but you still had to make up, like, you basically made a world. It's a world building thing.
Yeah, and that was like, I really, after romance, I love to read fantasy. Those are my favorite genres. And one day, do I want to write a fantasy book? Yes, but do I also know that I would just build out the world and it would just be vibes? Yes.
Although my most recent fantasy is Night of the Witch, and it takes place in medieval Germany. It was so cool to just be able to bring up Google Maps and be like, where's the river? Okay, it's already there. I don't have to change that. And they have all the same roads from the Roman era too. So I'm like, okay, we're still in the same roads. They can turn left here. We're good. It was really nice.
I kind of like that because you don't have to, like you said, just be like, I don't know. It's located here and it's a short walk.
Exactly. I mean, Google Maps is really nice on this. And I could put in like, we kind of estimated that the bicycle distance of both the horses could go. It's not scientific. And he just did that for the whole book. It was great.
I kind of love that.
Yeah. It was a lot easier than you would think.
Yeah, because I think making like, as much as I'm like, yes, world build, like you have to figure a lot of stuff out. And stuff you wouldn't expect. Like, okay, if they have a cart and 10 people are walking, how long will it take them?
Right.
Yeah.
So then you have to keep up with it. Because if it takes them 10 minutes to go there, then it has to still be 10 minutes next time.
Yeah, I feel like I'm looking at you because this is Hayden, he's great. He DMs. And I feel like you have to keep track of all that stuff when you DM too, or GM.
Oh no, in my last D&D game, we were just like, we can carry everything. Without a bag of holding, it's all ours, we can carry it, and we can go until we want to stop.
There are no limitations. So there were no limitations with this. This is how I get to world build. I have infinite money to spend because it's not real.
Yeah.
And anything I've wanted in the theme park can go in this. But it is like, okay, like it wasn't just, I'm like, okay, here's the world, here's the land. What kind of restaurants would the land have? What kind of food would it have? Because theme park food is a whole thing, which I love. But then it was like when I talked to my Imagineer friend, it was talking about like, what kind of things might I not expect about building a theme park? Bathrooms. And I was like, storage, like, Lands of Legend doesn't have parades, but I'm like, where does Disney keep all that stuff off season? Like, I mean, they have buckets of money and lots of land, so that's how. But another thing we use, like, oh, if you're like building this, like what kind of electrical permits are happening and like what kind of conversations with the city? And I'm like, oh, right.
That's why Disney need their own city.
That's true. They're like, we don't have to like deal with small town bureaucracy. We are a small town. Big town. No, it's pretty chill. This little company.
Just team time. How small this one. Okay, so let's pretend that you go to Legends, like it becomes real. You go there. What's the first couple of things you're gonna do?
If not the roller coaster. I built a really cool roller coaster. It's based on this one in Japan. It looks like it goes under the water, like it goes through a tunnel. It's probably a little elaborate for what you'd find in Southern Ohio, but Ohio is also home to Cedar Point, which is a lot of superlatives with roller coasters. What did you ask me? What would I do? Okay, so I invented a cinnamon roll place called Sir Cinna Swirls for Fairy Tale Land, and it's based on a place near Asheville called Whisk that's in Candler, and they make the best cinnamon rolls I've ever eaten. And they're like the size of your head. They're ridiculous.
We're gonna have to have a field trip.
Yes, everyone needs to go. Tell Meg and Steve I sent you. They're lovely, lovely. Yeah, so I want to go there and eat cinnamon rolls. So what do you do when you go to a theme park? Go sit indoors and put sugar in my face? It's not far off from what I actually do.
It's not a bad plan.
It's not a bad plan. It's very beautiful. Like it has stained glass. It's very themed. Like I would love to hang out there.
I saw that you're like, it's very beautiful because you made it.
I didn't is true. I have fantastic taste. That's my dream. And then I would, I made this trail in Fairy Tale Land called Wintertide Trail, and I used the word wintertide before severance, just for the record. Excuse me, severance. But it's, sorry, it's not in Fairy Tale Land, it's in Forgotten Beasts. So that when you go down this trail, there are animatronics, the mythological creatures, and the whole way you hear a dragon's heartbeat, and you don't know where it comes, so it's coming from. So it kind of is a little spooky, and it's like adventure. And I love animatronics and mythological creatures. So
we're so opposite. Animatronics are so creepy.
Works of art, Beth.
Soulless monsters.
I mean, it does depend on the animatronics.
That's true.
Some of the older ones are.
They will all eventually be old, and they will all eventually go for your soul.
For your soul. Oh my gosh. I feel like now I want to go on a field trip with you, and I want to go specifically. Have you been to Epcot?
A long time ago.
Okay, there's a ride called Spaceship Earth.
Mhm.
That's my favorite ride there. It's full of animatronics.
Isn't that the one that just slowly goes in a circle?
Yes, but through history. Through history, it is fun. Also, you know what? That ride is great for on a hot day.
That's fair.
But you go through the burning of Rome.
I mean, I can get down with that.
Yeah. So the animatronics that are showing their age, but I love them nonetheless.
They're basically just mechanical puppets, and puppets are the worst thing ever. So.
Oh, I forgot that. Yeah, you do like Muppets. Muppets?
They're on the line. I'll accept them.
Well, we have to have a talk about our friendship soon.
But Muppets in Hollywood Studios, that's where you go for the air conditioner. So
Yeah, not anymore. They're closing it. Is it closed yet? Soon. R.I.P. Muppet 3D vision. Yeah, you're like, oh no, what's the last thing Jim Henson worked on, Beth?
I mean, okay. But so anyway.
My next one's full of puppets just for you.
So getting back to Thrillhead. So we talked a lot about the part, but what about the characters? Are there any like quirks or pets that were maybe inspired by any real pets? Loaded question.
Yes, I think you know the answer to this. I have cats. I have 4 cats, which is a very normal number of cats, as I like to say. And one of them, I have 2 tuxedos now, but there was just one before, and her name's Kyrie, and she is an alien and a cat. She's the best, and she's a floofy beast. So Charlotte has, her dad, she had moved back in with her parents, of course, when she got laid off from her job. And her dad has a tuxedo cat that she ends up with named Mad Mardigan because Charlotte, loves Willow. So it is a floofy black and white cat. Every mannerism that cat has is Kyrie. Yeah, but it was really fun to, this is my first, I've written a fiction short story for Star Wars, but this is my first novel, and it was really like a learning lesson in everything. But especially character development. Like Charlotte, I had entirely fleshed out. I knew her. There's a lot of me in her. And that was like the easy thing. But Gregory at first was very insert love interest. Like he was just kind of very grumpy was his main quality, and that he wore a tie. So it was really with the help. It counts as traits. It was really with the help of my wonderful editor, Alex Sunshine, who, as we were going through it, kind of helped me realize, like, yes, even though the story is entirely from Charlotte's POV, like the more we know Gregory, the more you know about him, the more real he becomes. So then I had a really good time of like, kind of building out his backstory and working backward from, there's a tattoo that's hinted at that she can see sometimes, like right when he does the classic roll up the shirt sleeves, and you're like, this straight-laced guy has a tattoo, like what is it of? And I think in the initial draft, I just kind of skipped it, and Alex rightfully was like, that could be it. I'm like, yes, you're right, that is, tattoos are hot. Tattoos are, I mean, like on board with it. But I worked backward from, like, I made his tattoos, like the mountains, like where he grew up and hung out with us. I just built his like history backwards from there. and like what his interests were. And like, 'cause he didn't really want to be, oh, that was something I had to learn about. He's a venture capitalist. I don't know what they do. I still don't know what they do. So
Maybe go on Shark Tank.
yeah. So the investment terms in here, and those terms are used very loosely to just be like, I don't know, you give people money and they do stuff with it, and eventually they pay you back, or you take a profit share.
There's equity, there's something there.
Yeah. So if, heaven forbid, if a venture capitalist reads this, it's not going to hold up to scrutiny, I can tell you that. But that was a real lesson for me, and kind of, you know, for this book, I was very much a pantser. Like, I kind of knew where it ended. Pantser just means you go by the seat of your pants, and I knew the highlights basically, but I didn't know, you know, I got to that messy middle, and I'm like, I don't know, stuff happens.
And then they kiss.
And then we're all thrilled about it.
It's a ride.
Hey. But I didn't, it was a real lesson in taking the time before you write to actually like, give it more than 2 seconds of thought.
Yeah.
Which I'm putting into action with the sequel, I have to say. Wild the difference that planning things out ahead of time. I know other people can pants, I'm not one of them. I have an outline, and I know the characters before, it's pretty great.
It'll make the revision process hopefully easier.
I hope so.
Yeah. I've done both. Whenever I pants, I'll write quickly and then I'll edit forever. And then if I outline, I write slower, but then it's usually, not always. Sometimes it's like all around. But, you know. So what are some things that got on the cutting room floor? Because I love knowing what didn't make it into the book. It's like a little Easter egg.
Yeah, it in fact is an Easter egg. It was so specific that my editor was kindly like, why is this here? And I'm like, it's for a very specific group of people who will like get it. And that is, if you've been to Walt Disney World and stayed at some of their like moderate, like the medium tier hotels, they are gigantic. Like it depends on where your room is too. If you get dropped off from the transportation bus, like you might have a hike, you've been at the theme park all day, and you're like, I don't want to walk 10 minutes across this massive property in my room. And Coronado Springs is one of those. So my book, you know, like, look, did I use the word Disney? No. As you read it, if you know Disney, you're going to very clearly spot the names I used instead. And I wrote a hotel that was kind of like that, and I had a whole bit because Disney has this thing where you can access the room with your phone app and then not get a key. But then if your phone dies, which happens, like you have to go to the front desk and it's annoying. So on the night they go to the theme park together, they've had a great day, they're like going back to the room, there are feelings, there's kissing. And the gag was they get all the way to the room and like the phone's dead and only one person had the key, and then they had to walk to the front. It was just like this delay for no reason except that I wanted someone else to be like, oh, I have been there. So I cut it, and that was fair. I was like, this is for 10 people. And
They would have loved it.
They would have loved it.
It's always like the really fun little Easter eggs that get cut. You're like, yeah.
You're like, I get it. That is like a fair, you know, it's one of those moments I'm like, I can't even be it. That's fair. That's just fair.
Yeah. For me, in like in Night of the Wish, I am the one who's really big into history, despite not running it as class. So I'm the history nerd, and so I will go paragraphs about how these bricks were made by the Romans before they were recycled into this medieval road, all this stuff. And then Sarah, my co-author, will be like, they need to kiss. No one cares about the bricks. And so like I always have to go back and kind of, I cared about the bricks.
Picture you doing that in like a Luke Skywalker, like, I care voice.
I'm actually incredibly annoying because I'm very much like a well actually girl. And she'll write this whole thing. I'm like, well, actually, the gate was over there. I have a Google map that can prove it.
I have it friends up all the time.
I know. So what are some things that you can tell us about the sequel that you're working, or it's not a sequel, but the second book that you're working on?
Yeah, and I have to watch myself too, because I say sequel, but they're already together, and that's how romance is the beautiful thing about them. They are,
if there was a
they are
sequel, it would
happy.
be bad.
It would be bad.
Sad.
So it's a follow-up, set in the same world, which is language I have to keep in mind. I just keep saying Thrill Ride 2, which is also not the name. That's just that's a work in progress. Titles are hard.
Too thrilling to ride.
Hey, with the number, yeah, it has to be. Just whatever the Fast and Furious,
Exactly.
like franchise has done. 10 books later, the family.
Diesel shows up as a guest.
There's a feud. Fast.
There's another roller coaster or ride that's going away in Universal. They're getting rid of the Fast and Furious.
Oh yeah. You know what? I was sad that they lost at Universal. I think though at Universal Hollywood that they closed for a Fast and Furious coaster or something, but they had an animal actor show because LA, Hollywood, obviously full of like pets that need to be on screen and reasonably trained to do so. So there were like trained rodents that ran around, maybe birds. It was really cute. See, children things. You take me to a theme park, you're like, what do 5-year-olds do? I'm like, that's where I am. I sit and watch cute animals. Thrill ride too. So Charlotte has a best friend named Melanie who is so fun to write because she is a theme park food blogger, very much inspired by Disney Food Blog, and that's a whole thing now, theme park food blogging. And so it was great because that was research, right? To just be like, oh, what snacks are popular where right now? Research like online, and then when I go to Disney, I'm like, I just have my little list, and I'm like, yeah, Melanie would like this. Melanie is also so confident, so stylish, just things I am blatantly not. And she is the protagonist for the next book, and which I'm writing now. And the challenging part of that is because she's stylish. There are constantly moments where I'm just like, what is a brand name of shoe? A designer name.
Yeah.
But that's also like not too expensive, but like middle of the road, or just like it's more outfit descriptions because that's something she's very conscious of. And I, before I had this one today, I was wearing like the ripped jeans and the hoodie I've been wearing for the past several days.
I'm currently like really grateful that I only have to research physics.
Like I trade, it's very hard. It's hard as I write the scenes to be like, Charlotte's just like this comfort first is not what she thought about, but Melanie is very aware of what people are wearing because that's like part of her, theme park food blogging, like influencing, like all of those things. That it's becoming more of a challenge than I thought, and I have to cut myself off at some point to just write and not just be like lose myself in Blue Bog shoes, which is a brand I've learned of that actually are very cute shoes.
They're not Skechers, but
they're not. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be about her. It will have more lands of legend. It will have more theme parks from around the world, including one I really want to go to in the Netherlands called Efteling, that is very fairy tale based. And if you look up pictures, just like magical. And that was another like, okay, she's at this park, what she's going to eat. They make fresh stroop waffles, and you can get them like made to order with like toppings.
So I think you need to take a research trip.
Yes,
Very clearly we need to. I'm going to be your assistant, obviously. So
you have to go on the rides I won't go on. You can tell me about that. And we'll both eat stroop waffles. So yeah, that's the next book, and it's going to be really fun.
That sounds excellent.
I hope.
I really want to stroop waffle now.
I wrote that as like the very first chapter, and I'm just like, could I make a fresh stroop waffle? I feel like that's a lot of work. I feel like that's one of the things you probably just buy.
I think so.
But buying like a stack of them from Trader Joe's isn't as exciting about imagining like one fresh off the like waffle iron.
Yeah.
So anyway, when I make fresh stroop waffles at home, you're all invited.
Excellent. And on that note, I am going to turn this over to you guys. So do you have any questions? Yes.
Earlier, you said you have cats, correct?
I do have. I have 4 cats.
That's a normal amount. My grandparents have 5, my dad has 4.
Okay. We confirmed 4 cats is normal.
Thank you. I appreciate that
Exactly
validation. Exactly 4.
No more, no less.
How often do you find yourself rewriting entire chapters, just scrapping stuff? I know you said you write slow, but
So the question is, how often do you have to rewrite entire chapters and scrap things?
It's just bring the pain, right? Don't you? With this book, it wasn't so bad. My editor gave really thoughtful notes where it was more tweaking chapters and like going back into ad scenes. I didn't cut anything. In fact, I added like 15,000 words, and I'm like, is this oh, editing works. You went I'm like, I'm sorry. But in a recent book, which actually Beth was kind enough to read for me in 2023.
That
was a while ago. Is a middle grade fantasy that I just finished rewriting, and it was pretty much a ground up rewrite. And it was like I had a separate I don't know if you do this. I have a separate document if I'm cutting something where I paste everything I'm cutting, like just in case. What am I gonna do with it? I don't know, but I don't want to just delete it or go back through a previous draft. I cut significant, like that book is 15,000 words lighter when I turned it in. And almost all the chapters are rewritten, and it took 2 years to do that for her reason, because I'm just like, oh, it's gonna be better, but I don't wanna.
I have done a lot of rewriting as well. I do Scrivener, and I'll do split screen with it and keep everything in the one Scrivener, and then it makes me feel accomplished. But my third book that I wrote, Shades of Earth, I turned it in. I was actually at Universal Studios, and I turned it for a conference for something, and then like I was gonna skip and go to the theme park. But before I could skip and go to the theme park, my editor like wanted me to change something, and she didn't realize that if you pull one thread, everything fell apart. I had to rewrite everything after chapter 3. Every single, but that's not worse, because there's a certain IP in Star Wars that I've written for. After writing the whole book, a certain movie script changed, and I had to rewrite the whole book to match it in a month.
Oh, that sounds like Star
It
Wars.
was great, yeah, it was so much fun. Loved it. All right, on that note, other questions?
Have you decided who you want to play each character when it gets adapted into a blockbuster movie?
So the question is, who do we want to play each character when, not if, it gets adapted into a movie?
Thank you for that enthusiasm. So when I wrote Gregory, part of the inspiration for his name came from like the first early episodes of Succession, when cousin Greg is at a theme park and has an unfortunate incident. And so kind of Nicholas Braun kind of stuck in my head as I wrote him, like height and like hair and like build. I don't know if I've ever seen him in a romantic comedy. I'm sure he's done them, but I feel like he could do it. And cousin Greg is like, he can do awkward, and Gregory's super awkward. And then Charlotte, it's a great question. When I think of like people who would star in romantic comedies, I go back to the 90s, and that's not quite the right age range for Charlotte. I'm like, who is a brunette? I mean, also, it doesn't have to be their natural hair color. I feel like, I don't know their name. Yeah, that was really helpful. That was a really good answer for you. That was a really good answer. That one person and that one thing, I'm going to think of it later tonight, and then I'll just text you. And that'll be great for everyone.
Everybody at home is like, well, we'll never know.
You'll just have to go to, won't be able to sleep tonight. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Gotta keep stuff. All right, other questions?
How long have you been writing, and how many books do you have?
The question is, how long have you been writing, and how many books do you have?
I've been writing in general. I started with a blog into circa 2007. 2007. So I've been writing that long. That I published my first book, which was a Star Wars book in 2018. Updated edition of that coming out next month, Star Wars Women of the Galaxy, which is wild. And since then, it has been, I don't know. I always have this question for other authors, but do you count, like when you have a short story, do you count that as like you're in a book? Do you count that as a book published?
This is math.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not my strong
So
suit.
I think Thrill Ride is around number 14 or 15. If I'm including books that I've had short stories in, or like there's been a few Star Wars books and one Marvel book that I've co-authored with several other people. But this is exciting because it's the first book that is like the first fiction book that is all mine. So I hope to, as much as I keep wanting to do Star Wars books and IP books, like I hope to keep writing like stuff that I make up too.
Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned you were a fan of romance, so you read a lot of them before you wrote one. Were there any surprises when you switched from being a reader to being a writer? Anything you learned about the genre?
So as a fan of romance, what surprises did you have as you switched from reading to writing?
Yeah, this is something I should know. I just want to say too, I started reading romance in 2016 when The Ripped Bodice, which was at that time the only brick and mortar romance store opened in Los Angeles. I remember going to their grand opening with my friend Sarah, and like Sarah being like, "Oh, you want romance? Like, here's a piece." I said like that meme that's very like, "Here's a piece of candy, and here's a piece of candy." And the hardest thing, like, when you read a good romance, like that banter, like your feelings grow with the character. So by the time that they are like starting to be like, maybe he likes me, or maybe I like him or her, or whatever it is, and by the time they kiss, you're just like, you have all the warm, like bubbly feelings that you've experienced when you went through that. Writing that and wanting to like capture that joy is hard. I had a very like awareness of like, I personally don't mind insta love, but in contemporary romance, that's not so much a thing. So it was kind of like pacing the build up and being like, is it too soon? Have we waited too long? Like, is the moment gone? So I really had to like listen to my gut when I was writing. So by the time that they both stopped being, that's part of it too. Like, you write them for so long, like you absolute doofuses, like you both like each other. Would you just tell each other already? And now kiss. So by the time you get to that part, it feels earned and it feels good. But that's a hard part too. It's just like, if third act breakups are becoming not always, but just like, it's just like, if you just talk to each other, this book probably wouldn't be as exciting, but I would feel better about it.
Other questions?
When it came to world building for the theme park, like you talked about planning out like distancing and everything, but how much of that did you actually find yourself writing about? Like, you planned it out and then you were like, okay, well, does it actually matter that I planned out how far this roller coaster is from the other one?
So how much of your map making distance relativity came into the final novel?
Rude, first of all. Some of it mainly in the chapters that she's touring him around lands, because it is like, okay, we're going from this to this, and like, I know you have a meeting later, so I know that we need to wrap up your tour by a certain point because you have to walk back to the office. But otherwise, I feel like that stuff is pretty fluid, and if somebody is like really like going to be like, oh, they walked from Forgotten Beast to Under the Waves at 2 minutes, that's a bunch of BS. I don't think they're gonna like the book anyway. So I did not use a ton of it. And it was also a good lesson for me in remembering, like, I need to know the characters, I need to know the story. I can probably let go of some of the details, probably, unless I really don't want to write the story. And don't you shake your finger at me. Procrastinating is it's part of the process.
Part of the thinking time.
But yeah, I developed far more than I need. I at least did not get to the point where I had like a little legend on my map. But I could have. I'm like, well, how does this work?
That sounds like math though. Again, I'm out. Any other questions? Yes.
How did you write like conversation? Did you find that part challenging? Did you think of conversations you've had? How do you get inspired when writing how people talk?
The question is, how do you write conversations and dialogue and make them sound real?
Yeah, does it sound real? Not sure, but I will say, if you find this, I love writing dialogue because it eats up words so fast. When I get to a writing sprint that's mostly like scenes of just dialogue, I'll be like, I did how many words? Can I do that all the time? So I feel like when you know the characters, or at least you kind of know where you're going, or like their vibe, and I do think about like, okay, what are conversations I've heard? What are conversations like? What is the pace of something in a film? I think Star Wars is something I go back to because, it's that saying that George Lucas just would direct, I've forgotten it, but it's like faster and something.
I know what you're talking about.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's because that pace, like the dialogue is snappy. So while I'm not obviously writing a space opera, it's taking that like you want it to go back and forth and feel natural, hopefully. And then also I get really hung up on like what people are doing with like their hands and stuff, or what they're like there. So there's like words I find myself overusing or just like overthinking, like, you know, and what do I get? I'm like, I don't care about that stuff as a reader. I don't think about like, but his hand was just on his hip and now it's doing, I don't know.
Yeah.
But those are more the things like that I get hung up on.
A question from right.
Benji online wrote, Amy, I'm a big fan of your books, Jedi Mind and Hope Not Mash, and how you can use mindfulness and meditation to help balance yourself when life throws you something unexpected. Does your main character Charlotte practice any mindfulness or meditation in Thrill Ride when things start going sideways?
So Benji asked about your mindfulness and your meditative Star Wars and Marvel books, and do you apply that to Thrill Ride?
First of all, thank you for watching, Benji. No, she should absolutely meditate though. She needs mindfulness very badly. And it's something, it is a thread with Melanie. Part of Melanie's background, which you'll learn about in this book, and the follow-up is she comes from the world of fine dining, and much like Carmi and the bear, did not have a good time with it. So she's constantly talking to Charlotte about work-life balance and like, it's just work, it's not like that important. So, but yeah, Charlotte could really stand to like just take a few breaths sometimes.
Listen up, ride a roller coaster.
Yes, but she likes them, so that's great for her. That would just stress me the heck out and also probably make me sick.
We would be so sad at theme parks. We would go completely opposite.
It'd be fine
directions.
though, because you would go on the roller coaster and then I would just hold all your stuff and I would sit quietly with the snack.
And you can give me a snack, because I don't want to wait that long.
I would absolutely do that.
Because roller coaster was so long.
We'd be a great team up.
Okay, I'm good for it. You give me snacks, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide snacks always.
All right, we're almost out of time, but any last questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay. Thank you all for. Thank you, Beth. You're the best. Malaprops. All the things. I'm at the Oscars now. Everybody's gonna play music and tell me to stop talking.
Yay, well, thank you so much for writing the Thrill Ride book.
Thank you. I hope you all like it.
Yay.